War has begun. At the frontier of the Federation, our peaceful colonies are under attack. Who's our enemy? Ruthless, barbaric, and downright ugly. The Bug.
A wise man once said, "You never get a second chance to make a first impression." Now, who that wise man is actually disputed, but the point still remains extremely poignant in today's gaming landscape. Starship Troopers Extermination dropped in early access in May of 2023, and initially saw high player numbers. However, those numbers dropped dramatically because the game was buggy, unpolished, and nowhere near ready for a full release. Now in November of 2024, the game has fully released. Still buggy, unpolished, and nowhere near ready for a full release. This time, there's a catch. See, not only has this game released in a very poor state, it also has misled consumers to such a high degree, I think it's borderline unethical. Off-World Industries may have tried to have the biggest cash grab of 2024, but the crazy thing is, I don't even think it worked. Starship Troopers Extermination drops in early access in May of 2023, initially with high player numbers, although they fall pretty dramatically. That said, they do maintain some very dedicated fans. Slowly, the Off-World team rolls out more updates to flesh out the game, most of which are received positively. Then, in December of 2023, they moved the game from Unreal Engine 4 to Unreal Engine 5, causing major performance issues and bugs. Still, they have a steady fan base of a couple thousand people, so it's not too bad. Then a new update drops that adds new classes to the game, but also resets all progress. One of the critiques of the game is that it's very grindy, requiring a lot of hours to unlock the best gear, so having all of your progress reset comes as a huge slap in the face to a lot of the players. Around this time, I also released a video where I praise Helldivers and its polish by contrasting it against Starship Troopers and the early access model. I finished that video by saying, I highly doubt that this game will ever be finished, and now that Helldivers 2 is out, I don't think that this game will ever have the player count that it once had. However, pretty soon after that video, they announced that the full game is going to be releasing in October with a solo player experience led by Casper Van Dien, Johnny Rico. Again, just 5 months later. The game will also be releasing for Xbox and PS5, and they're increasing the price of it to $50. The lead up to release introduced the Carnage system, where bug bodies would lie where they died and pile up, literally changing the landscape of the game. This is a great idea on paper, terrible in practice when your game already runs this poorly. During this lead up to release, they go all out on Casper Van Dien. He is used heavily in the promos, he is streaming the game on Twitch, and he is tweeting about it all the time. The solo campaign is promoted heavily, with dossiers released weekly of the lore behind your AI teammates. The marketing behind this game ramps up dramatically, with trailers for this game being featured in things like Summer Game Fest.
But fear not, loyal citizen. The Deep Space Vanguard is ready.
The song used in the background is Rock You Like a Hurricane, which I promise you is not cheap to license.
And remember, service guarantees citizenship.
General Rico here. You report to me now, troopers.
There was a lot of excitement being built up around this game, and to be honest, I was excited too. I had a lot of hope that they would fix issues like the ones I brought up in my video, and that there would be a cool new campaign with Johnny Rico. Did it manage to do that? You've seen the title of this video, you know where this is going. The game releases, and it's terrible. Performance is worse than ever. People are unable to queue up with their friends without joining the same company first, and at launch, the companies that you could join were essentially random and extremely hard to find. The game had numerous bugs and was incredibly unpolished, but most importantly, when STE was in early access, it was $30, which I found to be steep, but not unreasonable. The only significant change between the early access version and the full release is this campaign with Casper Van Dien. Therefore, this is the reason the game costs more, and it absolutely does not justify that price. You set off to do 25 missions with AI companions that are incredibly aimless. The mission sets you within a small area of one of the 3 or 4 maps, having you go to X location, do Y thing, and then it just ends unceremoniously. Okay, so I take way more damage than the AIs do. We know that. And that's probably okay. Okay, secure the... Was that it? Oh, no.
I need a sample from that tiger.
Welcome to the party, pal.
It is horrifically repetitive and incredibly lazy. There is no flow or care taken to the pacing of the missions, so sometimes you end up walking for minutes at a time without doing anything at all. But the absolute worst part of the campaign is these AI teammates. Your AI teammates have absolutely no personality to them whatsoever. Everything you read in the dossiers, who the fuck cares? I could not for the life of me tell you a distinct thing about a single one of my teammates that I'm supposed to be the squad leader for. And the AI is just so fucking bad. It's one of the worst implementations of AI that I have seen in a video game ever. They cannot shoot most enemies and instead often spin in circles, missing every bullet. Got him, Jensen. Dude, and people told me that I was being too harsh on the first game. That's unbelievable. They glitch around and move sporadically. In fact, they frequently get stuck on minor terrain and can't move at all, requiring you to leave them and just do the rest of the mission a man down. This wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if they weren't so damn important to surviving. The campaign frequently suffers from intense difficulty spikes. Oh, I'm gonna die. I'm super dead. You'll notice my teammates lose health much slower and are therefore really important to have around as meat shields. Eventually, I found the only consistent way to survive was to pick the Guardian class because they have more health and this siege mode that lets you bunker down and makes your unstable weapons finally shoot straight. The problem is that this is not fun. The game becomes so monotonous, just bunker down and shoot at the thing. In later missions of the campaign where the difficulty is comical, being down one or two teammates means you are almost guaranteed to lose. The final few levels of this tedious, god-awful campaign throw so many enemies at you, I actually had to start cheating to win. Again, your teammates shoot like this, so they are of so little help in actually killing the bugs. Even still, the last few levels have you setting up nukes to blow up the arachnid nest, which could be a fun idea on paper. However, this is what the nuke explosion looks like, and they send so many bugs at you that I had to cheese it. I found that if a bug hit me from behind, right as I jumped, it would send me flying forward. If it was hit while planting the nuke though, it would stop, so I had to use my siege mode to anchor myself down while planting it, then proceed to the next one. This is not how you're meant to play the game, but it worked and it was the most fun I had in the whole campaign. Again, entirely because the intended way of doing this didn't work because my teammates were stuck on cave walls. The campaign ends with Johnny Rico reading some half-assed lines.
One last thing, you put on a hell of a show fighting Archie, and I'm proud to call you a roughneck.
And that's it. They say that they're going to add more missions later, but since the awful reception of this game, they have delayed a number of things just to try to fix the game. So who knows if or when we're actually going to get those missions. Hi. It has been almost 2 months since I last shot that, which means I'm the slowest editor on the planet. If you are a part-time editor and you want work, please reach out to me. But it also means that some things have changed. One thing in particular has happened. See, in November, they had an active roadmap that included SOG Chapter 2, more of the campaign. And as of December 6th, they removed it. It's not there anymore. Clearly showing that they want to instead focus on fixing the bugs and optimizing the game, which is great. Should have happened before you released the campaign. Back to the video. More importantly, though, why would anyone want more of this? Where are my other teammates? If Moose is also stuck on a fucking piece of terrain, I swear to God. This is slop, churned out because of unrealistic deadlines and because they promised to have a solo campaign experience with Casper Van Dien. And on that note, Casper Van Dien was officially announced to be part of this game back in June, and heavily promoted the game on his socials through community events. He talked at IGN Live, said lines from the movies with enthusiasm,
Hoorah! Welcome to the Roughneck! Yes!
and even played the game with members of the community on Twitch. Van Dien comes off as genuinely very interested in this game and the community, which is really awesome to see. It's so rare in the gaming space. Which is why what I'm about to say is really gonna suck. One of my college cinema professors, who I respect a lot, once said that with directing, it's sometimes helpful to picture the worst possible way that you could do something. I believe someone at Offworld brainstormed the worst possible way this could have gone, and somehow it made it into the full release. To start, if you were given the opportunity to make a Starship Troopers campaign with Johnny Rico, you might come up with some really creative ideas that work with the theme of Starship Troopers. You might take this chance to build a narrative that satirizes authoritarian systems and propaganda, or shows Rico feeling conflict between his support for the Federation and the bloodshed he experiences on the battlefield. Any sort of nuance or depth to a story that otherwise is just a military shooter where you shoot bugs. So what did they go with? A military shooter where you shoot bugs. Awesome. Johnny Rico commands your squadron, whose name I have already forgotten because it's horrifically generic, except he basically just reads you a mission description before you set off, and then once or twice he will radio in to say some of the most generic dialogue imaginable.
We're a team, and together, there's no force in the galaxy that can stop us.
The worst part about this is that Casper Van Dien is given nothing. He sounds boring. This guy is so energetic. Seriously, listen to this line reading.
Clear a small bug hole so we can mine for value. Don't like crawling up Archie's ass sniffing for gas? Then take it out on those bugs, Trooper.
And now listen to this.
Now, Casper, hoorah! You know what to do, Trooper! Kill them all!
Van Dien is an energetic guy. He has the ability for so much more than this. Some of these line readings are so clearly the first take.
Prime. The rumors are true. And sounds like this bug will be a challenge based on your report.
People do not talk like this. What are we doing here? This is how I would read the line if I was reading it for the very first time and also didn't know English.
Moose is from New Wellington. Scorch is homegrown Martian. And Jensen, well, she's Jensen. Where are you from? Belay that.
There is so much wasted potential in having Casper Van Dien lead a single player campaign and having it come out like this. Solo player tutorial. Wait a second, is this actually a campaign? Yes, you may have noticed that I have been calling these missions a campaign, but the game actually calls it something different. A solo player tutorial. The funny thing is, I could have sworn it was a campaign. Why would I have thought that? Could it possibly be that the publishers and developers of this game wanted me to think it was a campaign? No, that would be really crazy, wouldn't it? Misleading, even. Unethical. Let's rewind a little bit, right up to when I published my last video on this game. I was quick to point out the game's struggle with polish and optimization, running poorly even on my high-end computer, and having numerous bugs and glitches. To my surprise though, a month later, they announced that the game was going to be fully releasing within the year. On top of all of that though, they also said it was coming to Xbox and PS5 and included a single-player experience with Casper Van Dien. Now, I am no expert on video game development, but porting a game to 2 new consoles and adding a campaign with 25 new missions sounds like a lot of work for developers who had not nailed the core of the early access game. To say I was skeptical would be an understatement, but Offworld persisted. They gave interviews hyping the game up, going on IGN Live during Summer Games Fest and promising the world.
Ed Neumeier, who wrote RoboCop and Starship Troopers and all the Starship Troopers, he said he would be very proud of what was written here. I say more dialogue in this than I did in Starship Troopers and Starship Troopers 3 combined. So
Yeah, he's got a really meaty role.
Yeah.
IGN itself published an article right after saying that it was going to have a single-player campaign with Casper Van Dien. As a consumer, it is completely reasonable to assume that it was going to have a single-player campaign. And I think the devs knew this. Every single statement made before this game fully released was just vague enough not to call it a campaign, instead using terms like new solo experience. On August 22nd, they talk again about the missions, quote, designed to prepare soldiers for the more challenging multiplayer missions. And sure enough, the same day, Eurogamer posted an article detailing the solo campaign. Now, the devil's advocate here might say that this is a case of poor reporting, but I personally have no doubts that the developers knew that people were expecting a campaign and just were holding off to tell them until the right moment. Speaking of which, on October 4th, just a week before release, they released a tiny developer update calling it a tutorial. Our special operations group serves as the solo play tutorial. It is mainly designed for beginners, introducing our game mechanics, bugs, missions, and the expansive Starship Troopers universe in an approachable and engaging way. The other blatant lie here, by the way, is that it introduces core mechanics of the game. Not once do you build a base in this campaign, which is the core mechanic of the game. People rightly were upset and shocked by this news that it was not a campaign, but instead a tutorial. Now, there's two ways that you can look at this. One, the devs were hard at work and did not notice the articles misrepresenting the game's solo mode as a campaign and wanted to clear things up just before release. This is, in my opinion, a very generous reading of the situation. Or, what I believe is that the devs knew goddamn good and well that this game fucking sucked. You are seeing the preview builds, you know it doesn't work right yet, you know it's not a campaign. But you need people to buy this game. The sales and player base have declined steeply, and if this game continues to perform poorly, it's gonna be canned. It does not have to be finished by October, it just technically has to work. The solo campaign gets rushed through, haphazardly designing short, simple missions that waste time, and you can come back to it later. Hell, maybe even call it a part 1 and announce that later too, you fucking assholes. You already have Casper Van Dien on board, he'll get people to buy the game. Hell, maybe you give thousands of dollars away to Twitch streamers to promote this game. Just fix the bugs, finish making the carnage system, and make it run on consoles. Everything else can be fixed or added later. You know, if the game releases and you call it a campaign, people will rip you to shreds. So you call it a tutorial instead, that way you get more leeway. After all, you never technically called it a campaign, just a solo player experience. Also, raise the price to $50 because fuck, you guys are the greediest pieces of shit ever. Holy shit. This game costs more than Helldivers. People were mad at me for comparing this game to Helldivers. This game costs more. It blows my mind. The value is so fucking terrible now. Oh my god, I'm losing it. All right, back to the script. Fuck. This is what I believe happened, and I think there's a lot of evidence that points to them lying and misleading their fans. Even the back of the box says single player featuring Johnny Rico. You guys aren't even trying. The release trailer has pop-in and graphical glitches in it. Your trailer has bugs in it. This game was a cash grab, hoping to milk a couple thousand more people by misrepresenting what it actually was. But, hell, at least there's no microtransaction. Are you fucking kidding me? The absolute fucking greed to lock these ugly ass skins behind a $10 paywall on a $50 game is unconscionable. Never mind the fact that the skins look terrible and the price tag doesn't work for some reason. It's not supposed to say NA there. They're just the worst coders on the planet. They still don't understand the IP they're working with. Using "would you like to buy more" as a way of purchasing microtransactions is a Family Guy joke that would be shot down in the writing room for being too on the nose. But hey, maybe underneath the high price tag, the piss poor campaign, and the dirty, dirty business tactics, maybe there's a fun game in here. When people look at early access and beta games, they tend to be forgiving if they believe the game is still fun, even if it's unpolished. For example, look at Rivals of Aether 2. Rivals 2 is a platform fighter like Smash Bros. And is a sequel to Rivals of Aether, which is a very polished and fun game that has had developer support for many years. Rivals 2 recently came out after being in a Kickstarter beta period for a long time, and I have mixed feelings. The game is fun, fluid, and visually very striking, but it's also clearly not finished. Ow! What the fuck just happened? The single player mode is fine but unimpressive, the ranked mode is bare bones, and there is almost no support for people new to the genre. No in-game tutorials or guides on the mechanics, nothing really. I questioned for just a moment why I still like Rivals 2 when it was doing the same things I was criticizing Starship Troopers for. And then I remembered that Rivals 2 is a really fun game at its core. The developers focused first and foremost on making the gameplay as polished as it could be, and then they began adding features to it. I still believe the game released too early and is probably worthy of criticism for that, but if you're a fan of the genre, you're gonna have a lot of fun. God knows I have. Starship Troopers Extermination has been adding features onto a game that I think has a very weak core. It's a game that misunderstands its source material and instead plays as a military sim, which makes sense when you understand the developers are coming from Squad, one of the biggest military sims. When you're a hammer, everything starts looking like a nail. The base building that the game focuses much of its gameplay around is not innovative and doesn't feel particularly engaging. The lack of options leads to little creativity, and every game feels incredibly repetitive. The gameplay loop is build base, shoot bugs, repair base. Sometimes you might have to stop to refill turret ammo or do a boring objective like mining for materials, but at its core, the game has weak bones. I believe that developers should totally be allowed to make the game that they want to make, and that metrics shouldn't matter that much. But does this game feel like a passion project? I think they just misunderstand what makes a game fun. If I told you that there's a jetpack in this game, you'd probably think that's pretty damn cool. The implementation of it is this piece of crap. It boosts you into the air, gives you a wonky descent, and then goes on cooldown for a little while. You cannot control your height, there's no fuel system, and most annoyingly, it doesn't slow you enough to save you from a fall. Oh, I'm sorry, do I have a jet jump for extra height? Oh, that's great. No, I love that every fucking level in the campaign is a cave. No, that's really cool. People seemed genuinely miffed that I compared Starship Troopers and Helldivers, and I think there's validity in that feeling. Helldivers 2 is a 4-player, highly focused, fast-paced cooperative shooter, and Starship Troopers Extermination is a slower, more methodical 16-person horde shooter with base building. What Helldivers went for was more appealing to me, and clearly a lot of people.
Helldivers 2.
I have been reading hateful comments for months now, telling me how I was glazing Helldivers and that STE was going to be a success when it fully released. So if you'll give me a moment. God, this feels good. That video aged incredibly well and leads me to my final point. Now, I dislike the practice of calling a game dead. I think it's needlessly toxic and usually offends the people who are still fans of that game. Every game represents thousands of hours of hard work, and there are fans of this game that want to see it succeed. For a while, I wanted to see it succeed. I ended my last video praising the devs and wishing them luck turning things around. That said, I knew that they had a lot of work to do, and you really only get one chance at a first impression. I knew a lot was riding on this October release. And to be honest, they fucked it. The campaign is terrible, the game runs incredibly poor, and they have actively upset their current player base while adding only a few new players to the fold. 1 month after release, it has the same amount of players as it had 3 months ago, which is awful for a game that desperately needed to recover players. Most surprising of all, I'm kind of happy that it's failing, which I know sounds really mean. But seeing these slimy business practices the last few months has completely turned me off on the developers, and I'm glad that people are not being ripped off, because frankly, No one's buying this game. It's already being steeply discounted at retailers, and the Steam numbers are already back down to the low triple digits. Some people are saying that this game is dead now, and I don't think that's true. I think this game died a long time ago. Not with my video on it, although if you read some comments, you might assume so. This game died when it released in early access. That version of the game, despite being much worse than the version currently available, looks strikingly similar, and in many ways actually had some things going for it that this game does not. It ran better, it felt newer, it didn't have to compete with Helldivers 2 and Space Marine 2. However, it did not capture a large audience, and many of the people that were willing to try the game back then will never return. You only get one chance to make a first impression. Make it count. I'll see you all later. Oh my god, I forgot about the collector's edition. They made a $150 collector's edition of this game. $150? Good lord! What were they thinking?